On May 24, 2024, Eritrea marked its Independence Day with President Isaias Afeworki delivering a speech in the capital city of Asmara. This year, unlike the majority of his speeches over the past 33 years, President Afeworki opted for a scripted address that lasted a mere 13 minutes. Yet, despite the brevity, the content remained predictably grandiose and delusional. In a remarkable display of self-importance, President Afeworki compared himself to global leaders like Vladimir Putin of Russia, Xi Jinping of China, and even Joe Biden of the United States, claiming a place for himself among these so-called superpower leaders. His rhetoric illustrated a profound disconnect from reality and a lack of self-awareness that has come to characterize his leadership. Under President Afeworki's iron-fisted rule, Eritrea has transformed into a nation marked by severe repression and dire human rights abuses. The president's rhetoric stands in stark contrast to the grim reality faced by his people. In Eritrea, dissent is crushed with brutal efficiency. Those who dare to challenge the regime face imprisonment in the nation's notorious gulags, places shrouded in secrecy and fear. Amnesty International reported in 2013 that Eritrea boasted one of the highest numbers of prisons per capita globally, with thousands languishing in deplorable conditions. Since then, the situation has only worsened, leading to a mass exodus of Eritreans seeking refuge abroad. Eritrea is now one of the fastest emptying nations on Earth. The world has come to view President Afeworki as a dictator unhinged from reality, whose speeches are akin to those of a petulant child. His Independence Day address was no exception. The president's main points included global observations. Afeworki claimed that Independence Day is a moment to reflect on both national achievements and global developments. He asserted that over the past 33 years, a new world order has emerged, dominated by Western powers and their ideologies. According to him, this free world is now facing challenges from forces seeking to alter the status quo, specifically Russia and China. Critique of the West. The president lashed out at the Western-led world order, suggesting that recent years have seen attempts to reinforce a discredited system. He particularly criticized NATO and the European Union, accusing them of expanding and strengthening themselves to mask their inherent weaknesses. Afeworki pointed to the ongoing conflict in Ukraine as evidence of the West's failures, blaming it on a flawed ideology.
I've said before, Russia will not prevail in this war. Ukraine will prevail in this war, and we'll stand with them every single step of the way. That's what the compact says, loudly and clearly.
Focus on China. Afeworki expressed deep concern over China's growing influence. He claimed that the West is using the issues of Taiwan and Hong Kong to hinder China's progress. The president's remarks implied that China's economic and technological advancements pose a threat to global peace and stability. Economic claims. The speech featured dubious claims about the global economy, including a statement that America's $30 trillion debt is a problem, with a significant portion owed to China. Afeworki also suggested that China controls 60% of the world's wealth and is actively trying to assist the poor and oppressed globally. Middle Eastern struggles. He shifted focus to the Middle East, praising the Palestinian struggle for freedom and criticizing Western delays in resolving the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. According to Afeworki, these delays have led to new regional conflicts affecting the Red Sea and Eritrea. National defense and diaspora. Addressing Eritreans both at home and abroad, Afeworki commended the heroism of the diaspora community. He reassured them of the regime's capability to defend Eritrea and maintain its sovereignty. According to him, their actions have been instrumental in navigating challenging times, and he encouraged them to continue their efforts. However, this praise carries a troubling undertone. The president's remarks seem to acknowledge and indirectly endorse the controversial activities and demonstrations carried out by Eritrean diaspora communities across the globe. From festivals to protests in cities stretching from Israel to Europe and North America, these events have often been marred by violence and unrest. In reality, there is substantial evidence suggesting that these activities are not merely grassroots expressions of dissent, but may be orchestrated or heavily influenced by the regime in Asmara. The connection between the Eritrean government and these diaspora activities raises serious questions. The regime's involvement suggests a deliberate strategy to project its political agenda and exert influence far beyond Eritrea's borders. Despite President Afeworki's apparent admiration for the diaspora's fervor, it's important to note that those in power in Eritrea seem to have little intention of residing in or fully embracing the countries where these activities occur. Even though they publicly align themselves with nations like Russia and China, it is clear that not a single member of the ruling party, the PFJ, is eager to relocate to these countries or fully integrate into their societies. While President Afeworki praises the diaspora for their role in advancing the regime's interests abroad, he remains deeply detached from their actual living conditions and struggles. The regime's disconnect from the diaspora's reality reflects its broader disregard for the plight of Eritreans both at home and abroad. In this context, President Afeworki's remarks are more than just hollow praise. They represent a cynical attempt to co-opt and manipulate the diaspora's activism to serve the regime's purposes, while simultaneously distancing himself from the consequences and realities faced by those in exile. President Afeworki's speech, though framed as a reflection on independence and global dynamics, ultimately avoided discussing the dire issues within Eritrea itself. There was no mention of the country's internal struggles, economic challenges, or the dire humanitarian situation. Instead, the president chose to focus on his skewed perception of international politics. The president's address revealed a concerning disconnect from the realities faced by Eritreans. With a GDP of just $2.1 billion and a population of approximately 3.6 million, Eritrea remains one of the poorest nations globally. Yet, President Afeworki's rhetoric remains detached from the needs and struggles of his own people. On Independence Day, a leader with genuine responsibility and respect for their people would focus on national achievements and future plans. However, President Afeworki's speech revealed a troubling preoccupation with global power struggles and grandiose fantasies, neglecting the pressing needs of his citizens. For the Eritrean people, the ongoing quest is for basic necessities like food and peace, fundamental needs that have been unmet under the current regime. The future under President Afeworki remains as bleak as the past 33 years have been. Eritreans continue to suffer under a regime that has failed them in every conceivable way. As Eritrea observes its Independence Day, one can't help but reflect on the chasm between the president's grandiose speeches and the stark reality faced by his people. For a nation in desperate need of change, the question remains, when will this relentless nightmare end?